Hello everyone, I go by the name of Jackdaw Duke, aka Crackerbox Productions for the purposes of beat battling. Um, and I suppose after Offside Cam, I'm probably the second oldest person to have featured in the top 10. Let's try not to hold that against us. And yeah, I'm going to do a little breakdown on how to get clowned in a Kenny Beats beat battle. Let's get into it. Okie dokie, I'll start with the drums. Much to the chagrin of most people in this community, I use MIDI because I find it much easier to manipulate than audio samples in the arrangement view or what have you. I've got kicks, snares, hats all grouped together so that I can process them with EQ together. Perk up here, the delightful triangle that a few people pointed out last week, and a little JB, James Brown, get, that we would have heard on hundreds of things before, I'm sure. Get! That's going to run through the this processing chain, which begins with the Smart EQ3, which is an AI EQ, really useful. Sonable Smart EQ2 and Smart EQ3, really useful for lazy producers such as myself who want to get things done quickly. But I'll usually couple that with another EQ if I want to make further changes. In this case, I just left it as is. Then I've got it running into this this puppy, Tony Empire's Goliath. Got it on the crate grit setting, which I like for getting nice crunchy boom bap sound. From there we go into Neoverb. Isotope, I've got on the boom bap break setting, but I've got it dialed real low, 15%, and I've also got the reverb EQ cutting out at the low end, so it's basically a high pass filter really, so that the reverb's only affecting the mids up, because these kicks are pretty boomy anyway, so I don't want them verbing out much. And yeah, the 15% is just giving you a little hint of space and depth on the rest of the percussion. Then I've got, because I'm an absolute fiend for saturation distortion, then I've got it running into Isotope's Trash 2. I've got on this deep wax setting, but again I've got the dry wet dialed in really low, so it's just giving a hint of extra crunch and texture. And then finally I'm running into what should be the envy of anybody who doesn't use Ableton, namely the drum bus, which is an absolute beast for making your drums slap. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody who uses Ableton is probably familiar with this, but for those who aren't, you've got compression, drive in here, you've got dampening, you've got saturation for your mids, your snares, and your low end, which you can dial in, and then you can sort of set your output limit so that you're not going absolutely mentally into the red, because this thing will make everything very loud. So all of these sounds without that processing on it sound a little bit like this. Bringing that processing in. Yeah, so it's a bit thumpier, a bit more spacious, fuller, all those good things. Okay, next, bass. Started with this synth, the synth patch. Sounds something like this. So a real nasty distorted FM patch which I've gone and made even filthier by, well, chucked on a bit of EQ, running it into thermal, which I absolutely adore, putting on bass, gone into grit your teeth setting. It's about 20% on the dry wet, so again it's just adding a bit of saturation. But yeah, thermal's an absolute beast, I think, for bass, especially for distortion and saturation for bass stuff. Also got Root 1 running through it to add an extra bit of saturation, and then that's coming into the Chur CL1V, which is usually my go-to compressor for bass, because I find it just preserves a lot of the weight and the punchiness of the bass really nicely. And that synth bass patch I am layering with the Contact Rickenbacker bass. On that I've just chucked a bit of EQ and also running it into thermal. Same preset as I did with the synth bass, but in this case it's cranked up a bit higher. It's about 50-50. So together they sound like this. And together with the drums, I basically came up with about 4 different bass and drum sections, and I think I used 3 of them. So yeah, together they sound a bit like this. All good. Now here was one of the things that Kenny was clowning me on, was the old what was it? The Nokia phone alert or whatever. So anyway, this is just a wee synth lead thing that I came up with. I think I was using Lo-Fi Glow, part of the Contact Play series. Captain Sava lead. What did I chuck on there? Bit of EQ. Bit of EQ. Oh yeah, a bit of a Mobius filter, which kind of adds, sort of like a shepherd's tone kind of quality almost to any sound that you run through it. And then I had that coming into a Pro C compressor, and on top of that I was layering that particular lead with the same riff, the same melody line, but with a different synth sound. With the same synth sound, but with vastly different processing on it. So I was running into this thing here, which is a plugin I've just gotten very recently. If this is going to open up for us, or is it just going to malfunction on me? Anyway, it's the Dimitri Schneer's Tantra 2, which is a bit of a multi sort of effects modulation beast. And together, those things sound a bit like this. That's the first lead line. Second lead line comes around on the second 4. So cool. That's our cell phone waking us up in the morning. I've got with another section here, I decided to run with a bit of an ARP, which I've modified a dupe 8, Arturia dupe 8 preset geometric series. Can't remember what I changed on this, but I fiddled with a few things. Ran it through Baby Audio's tape, which is a tape saturation plugin, which is quite tasty. again running into Pro C, and also into the FabFilter Timeless, which is their delay plugin. And I had that coupled with this Massive X patch, kind of a wah-wah type of sound, which I also saturated with a bit of the old Baby Audio tape. And together, those sound a bit like this. Cool. So that was another section's lead part. Then for the third section, I had some little accents here, little vocal doo-wop chop. Another little vocal chop here. And then this sample chop that I had, because well, a thing I like to do is get a lot of songs and just go through and chop little pieces of them out and put them in a big folder for, I don't know, so I've got a swag bag, I guess, of little sample chops that I can sprinkle into things here and there. So this one, the song by a 70s group called Revelation. That's where I pinched that from. And so all of those things coupled with the beat and the bass sound a bit like this. Cool, so they're basically the sections in terms of what I'm doing rhythm wise and melodically. Now we get on to the real dirty part, which is my use of the sample. And this is where things get properly messy. So basically I just took a sample, chopped little bits out of it, and then took those bits into arrangement view and arranged them accordingly. But I did so with quite a bit of processing on them because, well, as is often the case with Kenny, he likes to give us delightfully awful sounding samples. So yeah, it's got quite a bit of heavy EQ on this thing, cutting a lot of the lows and a lot of the highs out. Running it through Tantra 2 again, which is kind of doing a rhythmic stuttery thing on it. Some Pan Man for some extra movement and into the compression, and also I'm putting Good Hertz Pan Pot on it, which is a glorious well, it's a plugin for creative panning, but I use it mostly for stereo imaging, which I think it's great for. So with all of that stuff together, we've taken something that originally would have sounded like this. And it starts to sound like this. Then, in the entire arrangement, if I had actually had the chance to, I would have put on this mastering chain, which unfortunately I didn't have the chance to because Ableton crashed on me twice in the last 15 minutes before submission time. So I ended up bouncing the damn thing without any mastering on it at all, which is not great because the mix sounded muddy as shit, and that's what you guys got to listen to and vote on. Ha!
But anyway, ordinarily with my mastering chain, I run into the mag EQ just to use it for the air band. Crank it up to crank the air band up here to 40 kilohertz, and then dial in whatever gain I think's appropriate. Then after that, I'll have Goldfoss master running in here. This is a nice intuitive plugin to use. Use the recovery setting to recover elements in the mix that are more sort of embedded or quieter, that you want to sort of bring more to the fore. Taming will sort of do the inverse. It will tame things that are maybe too dominant in the mix. Brighten, well, that's probably fairly self-explanatory. And the boost actually is for the low end. So if you want to boost a little bit of low end, then you dial that into taste. And effectively what this is that it's a dynamic EQ that makes something preposterous like 300 decisions per second or something like this. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful mixing and mastering plugin for just bringing your sounds to life. And I've got it running into some virtual mix racks, like digital virtual mix rack, some saturation. Then also a bit of saturation with the black box analog design from Brainworks. Also really good for glue and saturation. Although I kept it, because I was in a hurry, I didn't actually get to dial those in, so they're all entirely flat. The settings, the J37 stereo for adding that tapey warmth. Clipper, casual clipper. Then I do a sort of a parallel limiting thing, so I run it through the good hertz Faraday limiter, then into the Fab Filter Pro to finish off. Have the ozone maximizer on there. In this case, it's already set to smooth dynamics. So yeah, altogether, if I did have all of this nice stuff on there, this hot mess would have sounded even hotter. Here we go. Well, if you've managed to make your way through that without leaving, and you want to hear some more craziness, I would have posted a bunch of other tracks up on this YouTube channel that you can dive into, and if you like them, and if anyone wants me to do some breakdown videos or anything like that, knows, leave some comments below. Keep your eyes peeled, because there'll be some stuff coming out in the near future under the name of Misplaced Famous, which is an experimental hip-hop project that I've got going with my younger brother. I might add some links for some of his stuff in the description below. Other than that, I'd like to thank Kenny and the Dots crew and all of you for being the vibrant, nourishing community that you are. And yeah, no, it's a great thing. Peace.